It started with a scream. Wet, guttural, and completely unexpected. Someone's face turned crimson as they staggered across my backyard, clutching at their throat like it might pop off. Milk sprayed from someone else's nose. 2 people were fanning their mouths with paper plates, and one guy straight up fell into my bushes. Chaos. Everywhere. I was standing just behind the sliding glass door, holding a pitcher of lemonade with a deadpan look on my face. The tray of ghost pepper wings sat innocently on the picnic table, still steaming. A sign right in front of it read, "For the brave, only." And yet here we were. You're probably wondering what happened. Why my backyard looked like the set of a spicy food challenge gone horribly wrong. The answer? Karen. Not a Karen. The Karen. The queen of passive aggression. The HOA's self-appointed moral compass. The woman who once left a laminated note on my trash can because it wasn't pulled in within the HOA-regulated 3-hour window. She lived directly across the street, in a house so spotless it looked like it had never been lived in. Hers was the kind of yard where even the grass felt like it followed rules. I had moved into the neighborhood about a year before all this went down. It was a decent enough place, quiet, tree-lined streets, dog walkers at every hour, and the kind of people who waved without expecting conversation. My kind of vibe. I wasn't exactly a social butterfly, but I hosted a small cookout every now and then. Just some ribs, a few beers, a couple of friends from work. Nothing crazy. The problem was Karen noticed. At first, it was subtle. She'd walk her little Yorkie, Buttons, up and down the sidewalk while peeking through the slats of my fence. Then came the notes. One about noise levels at 6:30 p.m. on a Saturday. Another about my guests overcrowding curbside parking, when in reality, there were 2 extra cars. The kicker? A folded flyer slipped under my doormat. Ways to be a considerate neighbor, a guide. I laughed. Then I ignored her. But Karen doesn't take being ignored lightly. The final straw must have been the Sunday game day barbecue. I only invited 5 friends. We grilled burgers, watched the game on the patio TV, and called it a night by 9. Yet, the next morning, I found a note written in fine blue ink. Sad that this neighborhood has become so exclusive. We used to be a community. No signature. Didn't need one. So I kept doing my thing. Quiet cookouts. Cleaned up after myself. Played by the rules. The following Saturday, I planned another gathering. This one small, just me and 2 coworkers. Nothing fancy. I marinated wings the night before, stocked the cooler with drinks, and set out some chairs on the patio. Around noon, I fired up the grill. Everything was going smooth. Until the first stranger showed up. It was a couple I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, both wearing flip-flops and holding paper plates. The woman smiled like we were old friends. "Hey, is this the place with the free buffet?" she asked. I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" Karen said the whole neighborhood was welcome. Said you were doing some kind of appreciation thing with wings and all. I what? No, I never. But they were already walking into my yard like they owned the place. I stood there stunned, spatula in one hand, as 2 more people approached, then 4 more. In the next 10 minutes, nearly 20 strangers were standing around my grill, scooping chips into plastic bowls and opening my coolers without asking. Someone changed the music. Another asked if I had any vegan options. I didn't even know their names. I glanced across the street, and there she was, Karen, sitting on her porch swing with a glass of Chardonnay, grinning like she'd won. I stormed over, dodging a kid who was using my sprinkler as a water park. Karen raised an eyebrow as I approached. "Something wrong?" she asked, voice coated in syrup. "What the hell is going on?" I hissed. "Who are all these people?" She took a slow sip of her wine. "Oh, relax. I just spread the word a little. Thought it'd be nice to make it a community event." "You told them this was a free buffet. Do you even understand how insane that is?" "Jake," she said, patronizing as ever, "you always keep your little events so private. I figured this was your way of opening up. Besides, people love free food." I was boiling. "I never invited anyone but 2 friends. You're trespassing. And so is everyone else." She shrugged. "They're here now." Maybe you should have clarified the invitation. Karen, I didn't make one. She waved a hand as if that settled it. It's just food. You should be grateful people think your cooking's worth showing up for. Then she turned away, calling out to some family dragging folding chairs onto my lawn. Make yourselves at home. I was livid. I stormed back to my grill and saw someone had dumped ketchup all over my dry-rubbed wings. A kid was drinking from my lemonade jug like it was a sports bottle. My coworker Jamie had arrived, taken one look at the crowd, and gave me a wide-eyed shrug from the porch. This is a lot, he said. I didn't invite them. Jamie laughed, but awkwardly. Well, they think you did. What are you going to do? That was the question. I spent the next half hour trying to politely ask people to leave, to explain there'd been a miscommunication, but most just laughed it off. Karen said it was fine. This is great, man. Love what you've done with the yard. One guy even complimented my host game. Host game. By the time I got back to the grill, all the wings were gone. My last beer was being opened by some guy in cargo shorts who winked at me like we were best buds. I turned around and went inside, locked the sliding door, shut the curtains. I paced my kitchen like a caged animal. The longer I thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was sabotage. Karen didn't just send a few people over. She'd blasted it, probably to her entire book club, the HOA email thread, and who knows who else. She wanted to humiliate me, to prove she had more influence than I did, that this was her neighborhood, and I was just renting space in it. I opened my phone and checked Facebook. There it was. A public post. Neighborhood cookout today at Jake's place. Wings, drinks, and sunshine. Bring a friend or two. It had my address. Tagged the neighborhood. Nearly 50 likes and a dozen comments like, oh, can't wait, and hope there's still food left. I stared at the post, heart pounding, fingers shaking. That's when the idea hit me. At first, it was just a spark, a whisper. Then it became a plan. I opened the pantry, moved aside a bag of flour and found it, a bottle of ghost pepper hot sauce. A tiny red vial with a matte black label, and a warning printed in all caps. Use sparingly. I held it up like a trophy. Karen wanted a party? Fine. She was about to get one she'd never forget. I went back outside and put on my friendliest fake smile. The crowd was starting to thin a little. Apparently, my buffet didn't last long, but a few dozen people were still hanging out. I made a big show of announcing I was grilling one last batch of wings. Anyone up for a spicy challenge? I asked. A few guys hooted. Bring it on. I nodded and turned back inside, closed the door, and started prepping the hottest wings anyone in that backyard would ever taste. As I mixed the sauce, gloves on, I felt a strange calm settle over me. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't going to argue. Karen wanted to play dirty, so I was going to let her choke on her own arrogance. And by the time the wings hit the grill, that ghost pepper glaze was thick enough to blister paint. I didn't warn anyone, except for one little thing, a small handwritten card in front of the tray. Fire Spicy Ghost Pepper Challenge. For the brave, only fire. I placed the tray on the table, folded my arms, and waited. People swarmed it like it was gold. Within minutes, the chaos began. And I hadn't even started filming yet. Screams echoed off the fences like sirens, each one a musical note in a symphony of regret. A balding man with barbecue sauce smeared across his cheeks was flailing near the birdbath, begging for milk. Another woman knelt beside the kiddie pool, cupping water in her hands and splashing it desperately onto her tongue. I watched it all unfold from a porch, phone steady in my hand, camera rolling. The footage was gold. Dude, what did you put in these wings? Someone croaked, eyes streaming like broken faucets. His face was as red as the Solo cup he'd just crushed in his hand. I didn't answer. I just gave a small shrug and pointed at the handwritten sign, asterisk, Ghost Pepper Challenge, for the brave only. Asterisk. It was the perfect setup. No one could claim they weren't warned. I didn't force a single bite. In fact, I deliberately looked innocent, supportive even. I handed out paper towels. I offered water. I even patted someone on the back and said, "You're braver than I am, man." But inside, I was cackling. And just when I thought it couldn't get better, I heard the distinct sound of Karen's laughter drift over from across the yard. High-pitched, sharp, mocking. She was talking to someone near the gate, still sipping from that ridiculous wine glass like she was the queen of suburban chaos. I turned my phone toward her and zoomed in. She hadn't touched the wings yet, but I had a gut feeling her ego wouldn't let her stay out of the spotlight for long. Not when she thought she was the one who orchestrated this social coup. And I was right. About 15 minutes later, she strutted up to the table, flanked by two of her book club friends, the kind of women who dressed like they were constantly on their way to a garden party. Karen scanned the spread, narrowed in on the fresh tray of wings, and picked one up with a flair of a food critic. She sniffed it theatrically. Someone nearby warned her, "Careful, those are seriously hot." Karen rolled her eyes. "Please. I've hosted chili cook-offs, darling." I hit record again. She took a bite. The crunch was audible. For the first 2 seconds, she smiled. A performative, self-satisfied grin that said, "See? Nothing phases me." Then something changed. Her eyes twitched. Her nostrils flared. And slowly, her entire body locked up like it was bracing for impact. She swallowed. And all hell broke loose. She dropped the wing midair, lips contorting like she'd eaten a coal straight from a forge. Her wine glass shattered on the pavement as she clutched at her throat and wheezed. One of her friends shrieked and backed away. Another asked if she needed an ambulance. I casually walked over, offering her a napkin. She glared at me through tears, gasping, "What did you put in those?" I leaned in slightly and whispered, "Ghost pepper. You know, just a little kick." Karen doubled over and gagged into the rose bushes. It was glorious. But the best part? I had it all on camera. Every flailing movement. Every pained shriek. Every second of Karen's pride melting like butter on a grill. As the spice-induced panic died down and most of the unexpected guests trickled out, defeated, humiliated, or just flat out sweating through their shirts, I went back inside to review the footage. Jamie followed, laughing so hard he nearly tripped over the welcome mat. "Bro, that was evil," he wheezed, collapsing onto the couch. "Not evil. Educational," I replied, transferring the video from my phone to my laptop. "A crash course in respecting personal property." "What are you going to do with it?" he asked. I looked over my shoulder, grinning. "Oh, I think the world deserves to see how much Karen loves spicy food." We spent the next hour cutting together a short highlight reel. I added subtitles, dramatic music, and even a slow-motion replay of the exact moment Karen's pride exploded in her face. It was cinematic genius. But I didn't stop there. I posted it online anonymously, titled it **, Neighborhood Karen Gets Burned, literally. *, within hours, it had over 20,000 views. Then 50. By morning, it had crossed 100,000. It was going viral. And Karen? She had no idea. Until Tuesday morning. I was trimming my hedges when she marched across the street, cheeks puffed with fury, sunglasses too large for her face like they were trying to shield her from the judgment of the entire internet. "You think you're clever, don't you?" she snapped. I didn't even look up. Morning Karen. Don't you morning me. I saw the video. Everyone saw it. My sister in Utah sent it to me. Wow, small world. Take it down. Now. Can't, I said, feigning regret. It's already out there. Not my channel. She hissed through her teeth. You think this is funny? I set the trimmer down and turned to her, full eye contact. Do you think what you did was okay? Inviting the entire neighborhood to my house without asking? Turning my backyard into a pop-up theme park? I was trying to build community. No. You were trying to make a point. You thought you could control me. But you picked the wrong person. Karen's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again like a fish gasping for water. But no words came out. I didn't force anyone to eat the wings, I added. I even labeled them. It's not my fault people ignored the warning. Her fists balled at her sides. You're going to regret this. Maybe, I said, walking back toward the door. But you're going to regret it first. She didn't respond, just turned on her heel and stormed off, stomping so hard her sandals flapped. By the end of the week, the video had passed 500,000 views. A local meme page reposted it. Then a food challenge YouTuber stitched it with commentary, calling it the most passive-aggressive revenge I've ever seen. And I love it. But of course, things didn't end there. Karen, desperate to save face, tried to go on the offensive. She posted a long, rambling story in the neighborhood Facebook group, claiming she had been maliciously poisoned at a so-called community event hosted by a vindictive homeowner with a clear grudge against hospitality. She called me a threat to public safety. She said I weaponized food. She even claimed I was in violation of HOA bylaws by intentionally endangering neighbors. But here's where it gets interesting. See, I'd done my homework. Before I posted anything, I checked the HOA handbook. There was no clause about hot food, no clause about inviting or not inviting neighbors. But there was a very specific section about private property, consent, and event coordination, particularly Section 4.7, unauthorized gathering and trespass. And wouldn't you know it? Karen had violated nearly every bullet point. So I sent an email to the HOA board. I attached screenshots of her Facebook invitation, photos of strangers in my yard, timestamps, video clips, the whole saga. I didn't even need to add commentary. The evidence spoke for itself. By the next board meeting, Karen was squirming. I wasn't there, but Jamie was. He said she looked like a balloon ready to pop. The board president read out my email in full. Several neighbors, some who'd eaten the wings no doubt, testified that Karen had explicitly told them I was hosting a community event with free food. One neighbor even mentioned the exact phrase Karen had used. Asterisk, don't worry, Jake's cool with it. He just plays hard to get. Asterisk. The board didn't laugh. In fact, they issued Karen an official warning for misconduct and misrepresentation. But the real kicker? She was fined. Not heavily, just enough to sting. Enough to humiliate her. She had to pay for event liability costs, since she'd promoted it without coordination or consent. And she was publicly reminded in the HOA bulletin that no member could act as a spokesperson for another household. Her reign of suburban terror took a hit that day, and I made sure to frame a copy of that bulletin right above my grill. But just when I thought it was all wrapping up, something curious happened. A letter showed up in my mailbox. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting instantly, tight, slanted, like someone afraid of looking messy. Inside, on plain stationery, were just 5 words. You'll never be rid of me. No name, no threat, just that. I held it in my hands for a full minute, unsure whether to laugh or shred it. Because here's the thing, Karen had been publicly humiliated, reprimanded by the board, and outed online for the manipulative chaos agent she was. But that letter? That was her promise that she wasn't done yet. And I believed her. Which is why, when I looked out the window and saw her walking buttons in wide, deliberate circles past my driveway later that afternoon, I wasn't surprised. I was already planning my next move. It started small, too small to notice at first. A few muddy paw prints on my front steps. A trash can tipped over at the end of my driveway. Sprinklers mysteriously set off in the middle of the night. At first, I chalked it up to raccoons or maybe kids being kids. But when I found the for sale sign jammed sideways into my lawn, spray painted with the word toxic in red, I knew exactly who was behind it. Karen wasn't just mad. She was unhinged. The HOA slap on the wrist had wounded her pride more than I anticipated. Instead of retreating and licking her wounds like a rational person, she decided to declare silent war, a campaign of little torments, subtle sabotage, and whispered poison designed to make me crack. But I didn't flinch. I documented everything. Security cameras, Ring doorbell, motion sensors in the backyard. Karen wanted to play games? Fine. But I was keeping score. Then came the complaints. A letter from the HOA about excessive noise. Another about improper use of lawn equipment after dusk. One neighbor accused me of reckless driving in the cul-de-sac. I barely drove 15 miles per hour. It was so obvious what was happening. Karen had launched a smear campaign. Whispered rumors over brunch. Emails sent from burner accounts. She was trying to isolate me, turned the neighborhood against me like some sort of suburban Mean Girls villain. But the one thing she didn't account for was that I still had the footage. And that footage still had teeth. So while she played games with garden tools and anonymous tips, I went for the jugular. I uploaded a second video. This one wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even funny. It was cold, calculated, and damning. Titled The Truth About My HOA Karen. It was a compilation of her lies, the invitation screenshots, audio from the Facebook group posts, and the surveillance footage of her sneaking buttons over to defile my rose bushes at 2 a.m. I paired it all with a calm voiceover. Not all neighbors are created equal. Some push boundaries. Others bulldoze them. I didn't even mention her by name. But anyone with 2 brain cells and a search bar could put the pieces together. This time, the video didn't just go viral, it exploded. Local news stations picked it up. A podcaster did a full breakdown, titling their episode Terror in the Suburbs, the HOA Hostage Crisis. Comments poured in by the thousands. People shared their own Karen stories. Hashtags were born. Memes were created. Someone even photoshopped Karen's face onto a ghost pepper logo and started selling stickers. I ordered 10. Karen, on the other hand, spiraled. She stopped walking buttons. She stayed indoors. Her shutters were drawn all day. It was like watching a queen retreat into her crumbling castle, hoping the moat would keep the villagers at bay. But shame doesn't respect borders. And the internet never forgets. Then one day, the final straw broke. I came home to find my backyard gate wide open, the lock visibly broken. The barbecue cover was torn, the cooler overturned, and muddy footprints tracked up to my back door. I checked the footage. There she was, Karen, alone, in the middle of the afternoon, wearing all black like a cartoon burglar, wrestling with the gate lock and eventually snapping it with bolt cutters. She marched in like she owned the place, looked around, and then, strangely, placed a folded piece of paper under the cushion of my patio chair before storming off again. No spray paint. No vandalism. Just the note. It was short. You win this round. But watch your back. I'm not done. I stared at it for a full minute, the paper fluttering slightly in the breeze, like some dramatic movie prop. It would have been laughable if it hadn't been so invasive. She'd broken onto my property. Not just trespassed. She'd brought tools. She'd searched the place. And worse, she'd left a message like it was some mafia threat. I forwarded everything to the police. 2 officers came by the next day, calm and professional. They reviewed the footage, took the statement, and promised to pay her a visit. Karen's mugshot never appeared in the news. But I did see her the following weekend, standing beside a stern-looking man in a suit on her front lawn, gesturing wildly at my house while holding what looked like legal paperwork. The man didn't look amused. A week later, a for sale sign went up in her yard. Karen was leaving. I didn't throw a party, didn't gloat, didn't say a word to her. I just mowed my lawn, waved at a few neighbors, and watched as her empire collapsed quietly. The rumors spread fast. Some said the HOA forced her out. Others claimed it was the defamation lawsuit she'd been threatened with. Jamie swore he saw movers hauling out dozens of fake plants and a case labeled Wine Emergency KIT. I didn't care. What mattered was that she was gone. My neighborhood breathed easier. The shadows seemed thinner. Even buttons looked less tense. And yet, there was one last twist. About a month after she left, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a ceramic chili pepper, the kind you'd find in a tourist gift shop. Bright red, glossy, and absurdly realistic. Under it was a sticky note with one sentence. Let's see how you handle heat when it's real. No signature. But I knew. This wasn't just petty anymore. It was obsession. I had underestimated her capacity for vengeance. And while she might have lost the war on my lawn, her exit strategy was clear. Haunt me from afar. Whether it was a veiled threat, a joke, or just her idea of a final mic drop, I couldn't tell. But it didn't matter. Because I had peace again. My backyard was my own. The grill stayed covered. My guests came only by invite. I threw a small party that summer, nothing huge. Just close friends. Jamie brought a cooler of drinks, and someone made ribs. I grilled. We laughed. And we made sure to label every spicy item, just in case. As the sun dipped behind the houses and the sky turned sherbet pink, I leaned back in my patio chair, sipping a cold drink, watching the fire pit flicker. Jamie nudged me and said, "So was it worth it?" I didn't hesitate. Absolutely. Because it wasn't just about the wings or the videos or the HOA drama. It was about boundaries. About standing up when someone tries to walk all over you with a glass of wine and a fake smile. Karen thought she could steamroll through anyone with passive aggression and gossip. But she learned something important. Some people bite back. And some serve ghost pepper wings. The night ended with laughter, music low, smoke curling into the stars. My home was quiet again. Peaceful. Mine. And though I occasionally checked over my shoulder or glanced at the mail with suspicion, I slept soundly. Because no matter how loud Karen screamed, how many guests she invited without asking, or how many cryptic notes she left behind, she couldn't erase what happened. She lost. And I had the footage to prove it.